there's something that you didn't receive clarification on, please put that out there because this is the last session there. Of course, we can never in these few short sessions really cover this subject adequately. I hope you all forgive me for my failure to be able to do that. These subjects are very often uh, require a lifetime to really fully grasp, but we're trying to get as much as we can in these short periods that we've been talking about it. So if your minds have come back down and cleared itself yet, we'll pick back up. And I think before we go into the just general discussions, I think one last thing I want to add to the material that we've already discussed. I want you to begin to see the role that you play and your experience of the sufferings that is associated with this whole activity of attaching yourself. And what you have to begin to understand is that it's very much like a person who sits pinching himself, just continuously pinching himself. And then they are trying to figure out ways to remedy the pain from the pinching. They get books that talks about how to get rid of the pain in your leg. They go to special places where there's allegedly wise men and women who can tell them how to transcend the pain in their legs and so forth. But the fundamental cause of the pain in the leg is their pinching. You see, this contracting on a moment by moment basis back into your sense of separation, this making of yourself feel separate from creation is the activity that is responsible for your own suffering. It is your ego that is causing your own pain. It is an activity that you yourself are doing to yourself. You see, if you remember, one of the most startling statements that we made in the series on anger was the fact, and if you recall, we pointed out that nobody makes you angry. You make yourself angry. You see? And we went through all of the mechanics, remember, on how that actually takes place. Well, it's the same with suffering. No one causes your suffering. No one causes your unhappiness. No one causes your depression. You depress yourself. You see? No one causes your loneliness. You make yourself lonely. You see? No one causes your poverty. You impoverish yourself. All of this is a self-generated activity. And you can drop it at the moment you have the requisite level of realization that that's what you're doing. Once the level of understanding has matured, where you can actually see what you're doing to yourself. And therefore, the homework that will be very good for you to do until we meet again will be for you just to look at how you yourself are contributing to all of your problems that you have. Look at the problems that you are having in your life. And we all have our own private sets of problems. And I want you to look at those problems. I want you to do some gyanyo. I want you to recognize what's going on in terms of you and your problems. I want you to investigate them and see the role that you are playing in the perpetuation, in the creation, and the sufferings associated with those problems. It is your own mind that has created this problem. The problem does not exist independent of your ego. The problem is not a part of nature. It's not in the same ontological category as rain, sleet, hail, snow, sunshine. You know, it's something that you are generating. It is your own presumption. And you are reacting to your own presumption. The presumption that you are miserable. And then you react to that presumption that you are miserable. By trying to do all kinds of things to give yourself some temporary relief from the agony of that presumption. some kind of way to anesthetize yourself from a pain and a suffering that you yourself have projected. So I want you to see how you pension yourself, how you go on pension yourself. Yes, Khadija?
You said we make our own poverty.
For instance, what is what do we mean when we say poverty? Materialistically speaking, we don't have enough money, we don't have enough this, something on the material plane. Is that correct? And we experience this absence of enough, right? Now, the reality is that there's always enough. At all times, there's always enough. It's just that you have assumed that it's not enough. It is a presumption on your part. It's very difficult to see this. You have to spend a little time with this, because you really have to sit down and you really have to get this. Again, as I said earlier at the outset of this workshop, you must come to this level of understanding. So what you're saying that if I get enough money, I'll be happy. My happiness is dependent upon my ability to get enough money to meet these certain conditions. That presumption that your happiness cannot occur until you get this amount of money is the problem. Drop the presumption and you're already there. Remember, there must have been a time in your life when you didn't have that amount of money. Must have been. Right? And what was your state? So it's a very different thing. It's a very different thing. You were still unhappy out there without it? It's always been unhappy?
No, I wouldn't say always been unhappy. But when you asked us to think about what our state was when we made even less money.
Yes.
I think it was probably...
That's horror, right? It was horror. Yes, you may need money to pay bills. Yes, you may need money to pay your car note, but you don't need money to be happy. See the distinction? See the distinction? All right? You are relating to the reality of the situation. In no case are you holding your happiness hostage to your ability to pay your car note. The two phenomena are unrelated. You see my point? You have related them in your mind. They're unrelated. You see the difference?
Well, those people on Wacker Drive and live on their Wacker Drive, they really should be kicking their heels then, right? I mean, if their life is so uncomplicated, they're probably, if they knew, they could realize the sheer happiness of not having to worry about a mortgage in their car and how to pay it.
One of the experience that people have that have made a lot of money is that they discovered the unrelatedness between their experience of happiness and their bank account. That's one of the downsides, because they were thinking that if they were able to make $1 million, that this suffering would disappear. And they are really shocked, some even traumatized, to experience the persistence of this sense of suffering, in spite of having $1 million. And they have done so much to get that money. They have made so many sacrifices, you see, that now their minds become completely hopeless in ever being able to eliminate this fundamental feeling. They made $1 million. And this thing still, and very often as a result of that, they start sabotaging themselves. They start moving headlong into a descending spiral. Many of them commit suicide. I mean, they get off in drugs because they're trying to still find some way to, you know. But money pays bills. Money buys food, money provides shelter. But those are different phenomena than happiness. And that's the shift we have to make. And then you can go on, you know, and make your money. Nothing wrong with that. Please do not misunderstand me. I'm not saying go and and pursue a state of poverty, because again, poverty has no relationship to happiness either. Look at all these poor people. How do you think they're happy? If the lack of money was the basis for a true spiritual life, then these should be the most spiritual people on the planet. They are not. Because there is no connection at all between the two. So what we have to begin to see is that we hold our experience of happiness hostage to all these presumptions that we have made about it. When your happiness is already the case, you just have to realize it. And as people were saying, that takes a while to let go. And that is the only difficult part of the transition. For a moment, yes, you will be in a limbo. For a moment, you will be in this kind of void. You know, because what do you do now? Right? For a moment, there will be some confusion. You will feel very awkward. But after just a little while in that period of gesticulation, something new will be born. If you can just hang in there for a little while, slowly, but perceptibly, you will begin to have an increased experience of joy. Yes. If you don't panic and run out of that state, you see, you will begin to mature. But it will take a little while. It will take a little time to get accustomed. It's like when you walk out of a dark room into the sunlight. At first, you know, your eyes squint, you can't really see anything. The light is blinding. You know, there's a period of adjustment involved in this thing. Because our whole life has been lived on the premise that there's something we can do or must do in order to experience happiness. And there's a lot of momentum going on in our life that is predicated on the actions and activities that we have involved ourselves in based on that premise. So it takes a little time for that activity to settle in the mind. And so your mind will be constantly harassing you. You better do something to be happy, otherwise, you know. But if you just are able to disregard this threat that the mind is making and just remain calm, remain cool, then the experience will start descending. Or better put, it will start arising. Yes, Khadija?
And also, there's something about the spirituality, the traditional spirituality that we grew up with, seems to be telling us from the very beginning that basically you have to die. You know, and that's when, you know, it's in another place.
Yes.
And so you're always feeling like from the beginning it's kind of unattainable now. Because unless you're good and please the parental God, you can't even get it then.
Yes, yes, yes. Of course, our parental Godism, the dogma that is associated with that model is that by being good, by complying to conventional morality, we can get a little bit now and some of it later. But all of it is based on us complying, right? And as we said earlier, when we move into reality, we begin to see how this model does not account for all the experience, and yet it's hard for us to break our captivity to that model. And that does constitute a big struggle, don't it? Right? And one has to constantly practice this way, moment to moment, you see. That's why it's not something that you can do now and be done with it forever. It's a moment to moment something. Because your mind again and again will fall back into that old worldview. And again you have to summon the mindfulness to rescue yourself from that. And then again it will fall back in. Then again you have to pull it back in. This kind of struggle goes on. It goes on. But that is the problem in making the transition from the traditional model of thought, right, to a much more mature understanding of this whole business about what constitutes God and things of that nature. these traditional models are actually all that is being perpetuated in all of these religious institutions, be they Christian or Muslim or Jewish, it hardly matters. They're pretty much all promoting the same model of God. So you're right, Khadija. It is a bit of a struggle, and we acknowledge that. But it is not a struggle that is impossible to overcome through our efforts and our practice of awareness. As long as we remember that this awareness must at all times be practiced moment to moment to moment. Another thing is to practice your Gyan Yoga to the extent that your intellectual insights are converted into an emotional experience. Because until your understanding reaches an emotional level, it will not affect your behavior. It will not transform you. Because it is emotions, you see, that really drives us. Until you practice your Gyan Yoga along the lines of understanding your inherent existence in this oneness, until this becomes a feeling, until you can feel this oneness, until you can feel the facticity of your interrelatedness with all life forms, until that becomes a feeling, then you still need to practice this Gyan. You need to consider this more and more and more and more. And then when that feeling is there, then the breakthrough occurs. So not to worry too much about that. It'll happen, but then again, it will pass too. You just have to be strong enough to go through it. Yes, sister?
Yes, what is the, can you tell us again what is the dark night of the soul?
This is it.
This is it.
You're in
I kind of thought that was
you're in the dark night of the soul, huh? This is what the dark night feels like, huh?
Uncertainty?
Uncertainty, don't know what do you do from here, where do you go from here? Because you made all these plans, you got your list, right? You got all your stuff on your list of things that you want to do to make yourself happy. Actually, you see the reality, family, that everything that we do, without any exception, is driven by this very unconscious, subliminal effort to make ourselves feel a little better. Have you ever noticed? Have you ever noticed that? It's to make yourself feel a little better than you're feeling at the moment. Because at the moment you're not feeling as good as you would like to feel. You are never feeling as good as you like. Are you? Right? So it's this thing going on underneath here. There's always that current of suffering. That suffering that is the direct result of your separation in your own mind from God. To be separate from God is suffering. Now remember, the separation is not existential. You have to understand when I said we are separate from God, that's not an existential truth. That is Maya. That is the illusion that makes ego. Right? It's subjective. Right? It's not objective. It's not a reality. You see my point?
It seems like the beauty of what you're saying today is that we can take the weight off of everybody else. We don't have to find somebody else. We don't have to require other people to make us happy. We don't have to have a child. We don't have to have a dog to wag its tail. All of that is unnecessary.
Unnecessary. They are all presumptions made by the ego as to what is required to eliminate this fundamental state of suffering. And we get totally caught up in the spinning of all our life energies in the execution of these plans and these strategies. And that creates a kind of stress on you. You become stressed because so much of your energy is put into the attempt to acquire these things. You get tired. You're so tired of trying to be happy, you don't know what to do. You really are. I mean, we all are. And we try every now and then. We look up and we get a little relief from this fatigue. For a moment, we have some sex, and for a moment, we have some chocolate. We mustn't underestimate the power of chocolate to come through in a moment of need. And we feel a little better. We get a little relief from the tension, the stress, the strain of our own search, of our own seeking, of our own pursuit of happiness. Strange, isn't it? Very strange. So you need to examine the nature of your search, your seeking for happiness. One of the things that you have been spending all your energy under the assumption that the attainment of those things will mitigate your experience of this fundamental state of suffering. Tony, now you can't be confused now, huh? No, okay then, good.
You know why? Because my happiness, I guess I don't have quite that problem with my happiness.
You're happy?
I mean, I can't
Be
figure
careful
out.
now, all these people are looking at you. They're saying, what is she?
No, I'm not just saying this. I can't really say that I'm unhappy.
Yes.
I could just, I look at the sunrise. You know what really makes me happy? Baby, get in my car, sit on the lake, and watch the water, watch the sun. So like these other things. Now, I wouldn't say I was happy if I got a new car. I would like a new car because mine is giving me trouble, but I can't say that those kind of things are things that I would make me happy. Those are just things that being part of this world, naturally there's going to be some kind of material possession you want to acquire, but I can't, if you ask me now what would make me happy, I think really having this oneness that I'm looking for. If I get that, would that be bliss to me? But
let's turn the question on its head. What is causing you unhappiness?
To be honest about it, I can't say that I'm just not. I'm not unhappy, but I do this thing that I'm looking for. I wonder, am I going about it right? Spirituality. At one time I thought I kind of had it.
Why do you go to the beach and sit with nature? What motivates you?
Oh, because I need that.
Yeah, why do you?
Why do I need that?
What is the state that makes that necessary? What do you call that?
It's just my quiet time.
No. What state motivates you to seek the beach and nature? Why is that necessary? What makes it necessary for you to go and have that experience of that beauty?
I guess a yearning for.
Yes, but what is the state out of which that yearning arises? Why are you yearning?
I don't know. I just like to sit and talk with nature, be surrounded. I mean, anything. I mean, a good day. I mean, I feel bad and want to do it. I can feel good and want to do it. It's no one thing that makes me feel. I just like to do as often as I can.
But the thing you have to do is you have to go beneath your intellect. You're still in your heads. You have to drop beneath that and try to really feel what in you has created the appetite for that experience. What moves you? You see? Because what I'm talking about is at that level. And what I'm saying is that everything that we are doing is being done out of this subliminal appetite, this subliminal urge, need to make ourselves feel a little better than we're feeling at the moment. Otherwise, you would not do it. If you were happy already, why would you go to the beach? There will be absolutely no need. The beach will be wherever you are. You will not have to go outside yourself to generate that experience at all. You will be rooted in your own bliss. You see, all of our movements outside of ourselves are with that same ambition. Let me do something, go somewhere, see something, hear something, be with somebody to break down some of this misery that is going on. But you see, the first stage, you see, is that this, when we're in this state, it feels like we're dying. In fact, we are. When we're in this state of suffering, what makes it so painful, psychologically, emotionally speaking, is that it feels like mini death is occurring. Right? You start feeling like something, you're dying inside. Something needs to, I gotta do something. And it's interesting because we know, working with patients who are terminal, that we can see a progression of things going on psychologically. The first one is denial. When a person is dying, the first stage is they deny it. I'm not dying. I'm going to get well. I'm going to recover from this. You know, I'm going to be all right. I'm going to defy the reality of my own mortality. Now, this cancer has eaten up all of my internal organs, spread through my whole body. I'm not going to die. I'm going to defy. I'm going to survive. It's denial. Once we have emerged out of the denial, the next experience that we have is anger. I'm going to die. God damn it. Why me? You see, God, you know, why you have given me this horrible disease that's about to kill me. You see? So then we go through the experience of dealing with that anger. Right? And if we can come out of that anger part, you see, then the next thing we'll probably go into is depression. Is that right? You've died before?
Got anger. No.
But then we go through that depression of it all. Then as we move through that, we start bargaining. Well, if you just don't let me die, I'll do this. I'll become this kind of person. I'll give all my money away. I'll stop drinking. I'll stop, you start bargaining. Right? But after you see that you can't bargain with reality, then you surrender and you accept. Now, the interesting thing is that normally when a person can move straight away to acceptance, a kind of healing takes place of its own volition. Interesting.
You will see people will start improving. Their conditions will improve. When later on they take,
that's right.
as they said, turn
all
for the
that
worse.
stress goes off. What is involved in the first stage? Denial requires a lot of energy, suppression, lying to yourself, all that, right? That just stresses the system more, don't it? Right? And then you know what anger does to the body-mind system. That's even more stress, right? And you know what depression and this whole energy of bargaining. But only when you move into acceptance is all that energy free to become involved in the healing process itself. So Tony, what happens a lot of times when we're in a state of suffering, we're usually in a state of denial. Because you don't want to acknowledge, I'm suffering. That doesn't make sense. I got money, I got a car, I got a husband, I got children. God damn it, I should not be suffering. But the reality is you are suffering. But that ego mythology will not permit you to deal with that. You see my point? This false image that one has of themselves. obscures the reality of what you experience. I have met people that claim they don't need nobody's love. Now this is nonsense. Now this is utter madness. They would have had a better chance if they had have told me, well, I don't need to breathe, I don't need water. Maybe I could have stretched my imagination a little. I could have went along with them for a little piece of that ride. But when they come to this claim, I don't need no love, then I know that this person is fundamentally insane. Fundamentally insane. They're spiritually insane. There's a kind of spiritual insanity that is far more devastating than emotional and mental insanity. When a person has gone spiritually insane, they talk like that. I don't need love. Right? When they say that I am happy in this state of ego and separation, now this is madness. Absolute madness. But it is a lie. And so we have to go through those stages. We have to go through those stages of truth. We have to go through that. It's inevitable. And all of us have it. All of us have it. But the moment you see that state really occurs, something very different happens to you. And the proof is there in your life. If you're still frustrated, and you're still getting angry and all that, then you don't have that stuff. Because how you going to get frustrated in a state of happiness? No frustration is possible. We weave in and out. That's the reality of it. We weave in and out. And so for a little while, life is going great. It could go great for 5, 10 years. That's not unusual. And then crisis hit. And then you're in a teeth. And then you discover, oh my God, you're not prepared for it. So we all go through those kind of things. But what I'm trying to get you to see is that what drives a lot of our movement and throughout life is this subtle and subliminal urge to make ourselves feel a little better than we are feeling at the moment. The search for God begins here. Because now God and God realization simply becomes another state that we are trying to attain to make ourselves feel better forever. So, to achieve permanent relief from our suffering. We know if we can get God realizing we ain't gonna never, ever feel this suffering no more. So God become like the ultimate attainment for the relief of suffering. But it's still an ego pursuit. And it remains an ego pursuit for a very long part of the spiritual journey. It doesn't disappear until toward the very end. And nothing wrong with that. I'm not condemning any of these things. I'm simply saying we have to understand these things. I couldn't get no money. I couldn't get this. I couldn't get that. So I was not able to get no relief from my temporary state of suffering. So I said, man, if I get God, then I don't need no husband. I don't need no job. I don't need none of this stuff. You see? Right? I got God. And I don't need none of y'all bastards. Right? And that's what motivates the ego. It's a really interesting thing when we consider it closely. Yes, Shanae. Finally, Shanae speaks with us today.
I was just telling you earlier a message that I heard yesterday that I thought I understood it yesterday. You just rewrote it. Because I was saying that we went to our cousin's funeral yesterday, and they passed out Kleenex at the very beginning. People were ready for the tears. And the minister who spoke was hysterical. We were laughing through the whole ceremony.
Khadijah too.
We were all laughing. And because he did speak the truth about the difference of who we should really be crying for, and not the person who had a rough life anyway and is in a better state. But one of the things he said is that Ronald was not responsible and had nothing to do with the dates that were going on his tombstone. The date that he came into this world and the date that he went out on. He said, but the responsibility that he did own was the dash in between. And I was, and he kept talking about taking care of your dash. And I was thinking, I gotta do a better job in taking care of my dash. And what you told me is, I did what happened in the beginning, what we knew when we came into this world, and what we realized going out, that if you just do it, it happens. So the dash really it's just something that we just put all of this in the way. Because I was sitting there thinking yesterday about what I had to do to fulfill my dash, but it's there, and I'm just not living it.
You have to let go. You have to come out of the sea.
Wow, that's hard.
Yes. Yes. In some sense, it's the most difficult thing in life because it's like dying. It's really like dying. In many senses, it's really like dying. It's very hard because what are we most attached to? More than our physical possessions, we're attached to our views, our beliefs, our image of ourselves, who we think we are, and all of that stuff. Our strategies. Very attached to our strategies. Because they're our strategies. Right? And it's very difficult. It is very difficult. So we don't make mockery of those of us who are still, I mean, it's really quite a difficult thing to do. Yes, Keith?
You know, you're saying it's difficult, but I'm sitting here saying, for me personally, it may not be that difficult because if I decide that I want to be happy, and nothing else that I've been doing all these years have contributed to that, I'm still stuck. It doesn't look like I'm any closer to happiness. And then I'm exposed to something that's going to get me over there. I'm gonna let go of that hasn't worked.
Yes.
You know, and try what seems to be that which is gonna put me over.
There are souls like you, of course. We can't generalize too much. It's just that the majority are not quite that courageous. Yes, sister.
That's exactly like a keeper because I've went to church all my life. I've drank up until like about 3 months ago. The only reason I stopped was one of the sessions you had. I mean, not that
I'm not interfering with your going to church. That is not my business.
No, not church. I'm talking about drinking.
Okay.
Yeah, and because I never felt anything was wrong with it. Felt like a social thing. Nothing was wrong with it. And so then something you had said, and it was kind of like, well, okay, if this is something I need to stop in order to get to where I want to go, I had no problems with it. And also like giving up meat. I mean, I haven't stopped eggs because there's so many things that have eggs that I'm still mentally. But like I thought Thanksgiving was going to be hard. That's like the first real feast I've been to because I don't count Labor Day.
Yes.
But so and it was totally. It was no problem. I had to say, okay, if this is what I have to do to get to where I have to go, then this is irrelevant. This is little stuff. So I mean, I feel like that, and it's because I want this thing.
It's good if you have that attitude, then that is very, very good because that will help you immensely on the path. It is very good, and you should consider yourself very blessed and very fortunate to have that much courage intact. You see, so that is just good. That's just a great asset to bring to the path. So, for the vast majority, however, you have to understand that it is a very terrifying experience in many ways. But as we have to begin to see if, in order to really appreciate this teaching, we have to again remember that we're like that peasant sitting on that train carrying all this stuff on our heads. We're exactly like that. All of the things that we become attached to, the things that you are attached to in your life, because you feel that at some point in the past they contributed some happiness that was temporary, transient, fleeting, and have long disappeared. But you're still carrying that around under the hope that maybe again it will be able to make a contribution to your experience of a little relief from your suffering. So you drag it with you. There's that form of attachment. Then there's attachment to things that you hope is going to deliver in the future, right? So you got all that baggage, you know, and we're dragging all that stuff around, clinging it, holding on to it, afraid to let go of it, become literally enslaved to all of that, bound tightly by it. And the ideal is to begin to understand that happiness is available to you without any of that stuff. That is the radical shift that I'm talking about here. That is what is revolutionary. Revolutionary. And it's a startling type of thing. Because you have lost the ability to feel this kind of natural happiness. You can't get naturally high no more. There was a time when you could get naturally high. When just simply the act of awakening was sufficient. There was a time when you could just experience happiness naturally. But we perverted ourselves under this illusion. You see? And now we can't feel any kind of release from our suffering without these things. Yes, Jeanette?
I guess, and that's why we have to be so careful because when you start to feel like you're getting the message, you want to share it with everyone, and you want people to get it right away. And what we have to remember, though, I think, is that you go on a tour with a group of people, and you're going on the same tour, the same location for the same number of days, the same amount of luggage that different people bring on the tour. It's different because, and it's because of where you are. I mean, I lived all over the world and had to travel because of the military. I learned to pack better.
Yes.
But my emotional luggage on that train is very heavy because my message is that, if it seems too good to be true, it is. And so you think, oh, this is going too well, it can't be here. Stop. Don't go any further. And that's what some people don't carry that much luggage. Yeah. And you can look at Tony and see she doesn't carry that much luggage. Something comes out about her, and they have something comes out about them. Yeah. And some of us have just been packing and storing and putting it up on top.
We got tons of stuff.
And can balance it.
Yes.
And
right.
that's and what we tend, I know, because we tend to want people to get the message at the same time. And I feel like such a slow learner in here sometimes. But I know it's because I'm trying to pull down, and every time you pull down the box, you find another one that's still in the way.
So then that becomes the fundamental liberating insight to have. And that insight will liberate you from the clutches of your attachment. Will you still use things? You bet you. Of course you will. You see, that's a certain reality of life. But you will never be in relationship to the things that you own and use it under the assumption that it's going to make you happy. Please understand, all that is required to be happy is the will to simply be happy. Just will yourself into a state of happiness. Done. It's really that simple. Not easy, but it's really that simple. Decide to be happy. Now just decide from this moment that you will be happy. And that is literally it. It is really it. To simply realize, in fact, you don't even have to decide. Try to realize that fundamentally at your essential core you are happy. Already that is the case. You just don't realize it. You don't realize that you're happy. The old saying, you don't realize how good you have it until, right? There's always something that has to be lost in. Some crisis has to be gone through before you realize how good. It's sort of like that. Try to realize, look how happy you were before you tried all your strategies. Now just look at that. I mean, really. Right? You were okay. And then you went and messed yourself, you pinched yourself, just into a state of pure tears, breakdown, nervous breaks down, all over the place. But you did that. Simply realize that you are already at the deepest parts of your being blissful, because you inhere in that which is blissful. How can you inhere and exist surrounded in bliss and not be blissful except through this illusion of your separation from being a part of that which is blissful? There's my Lord. Yes, Khadija.
I think sometimes some of the examples are given to us to look at in people that we call handicapped. And you look at the children, so many times with Down syndrome, and people want to say, oh, isn't that horrible, isn't that so sad? And they're walking around with this little smile all the time. Or I used to work with autistic children, and the comment that most of us would have was, oh, this is such a tragedy. But they seem so self-contained and so pleased, and that was our tragedy. We thought it was tragic that we couldn't impact. We just didn't seem to be able to disturb them. They seemed to be sort of, in this world, and impervious of us, and that we felt was tragic. But is it really? I mean, there's something about that containment and that maybe we should be trying to achieve.
Yes, well, certainly we should have the experience of this oneness that these mystics talk about. It's really hard to paint this picture in words. You have to forgive me. There's only so much that can be put into language here. There's only so much, because I'm fundamentally talking about a condition that transcends the mind entirely. It's not something that you think yourself into necessarily. It is really having a felt experience, you see, a literal experience of this connectedness, to understand that you are not independent. I think Shanae gave us something. She gave me this during the break, and I just glanced at it. And this is from Matthews. And apparently this is a message that you picked up yesterday at Thanksgiving morning. And she brought it to share with me, but then of course I like to also share it right back with the rest of you. But I mean, it just shows you that what I'm talking about here today is not new knowledge. As Pam said before, we've heard it a million times. But listen to these words of Jesus again and see if you recognize this truth now. And he speaks, he says, I tell you, do not worry about your life, what you will eat or what you will drink, or about your body, what you will wear. Radical. But why shouldn't you worry about it? Is the first question we ask. Well, if I don't worry about my life, if I don't worry about what I'll eat and drink, what's going to happen to me? And Jesus fundamentally telling you there's nothing going to happen to you, because there's no you. You understand? This you that you're worried about is Maya. It is an illusion. It doesn't exist. He said, is not life more than food and the body more than clothing? Life is more than that. We have separated life into these little things. Look how big this thing called life is. And he says, look at the birds of the air. They neither sow nor reap nor gather into barns, and yet your heavenly Father feeds them. Are you not of more value than they? And can any of you, by worrying, add a single hour to your span of life? Now, why do you worry about clothing? Consider the lilies of the field, how they grow. They neither toil nor spin. Yet I tell you, even King Solomon in all of his glory was not clothed like one of these. But if God so clothes the grass of the field, which is alive today and tomorrow is thrown into the oven, will he not much more clothe you of so little faith? Therefore do not worry, saying, what will we eat, or what will we drink, or what will we wear? For it is the Gentiles who strive for all these things, and indeed your heavenly Father knows that you need all these things. But strive first for the kingdom of God and his righteousness, and all these things will be given unto you. Now that's just so beautiful. It sums it up better than I could ever hope to do. Again, throughout that whole teaching, this whole message of Jesus, you see this same thing reverberating. What is it that worries? It is this ego that worries, because now suddenly you are alone in this big universe. Right. You now immediately filled with fear. Right. And you got to try to figure out how I'm going to survive. That's your fundamental question. How am I going to survive? I'm on my own. My survival, if I don't do something, I won't survive. That's the basic premise that you're working on. Is that right? If I cease doing anything, I won't survive. Now, this is the illusion. It's almost like thinking, like you doing something to metabolize your food. You're doing nothing. Really, life in the real sense of the word, biologically speaking, is happening independent of you. Anyhow. So you say, well, I'll die if I don't get my food. Yeah, perhaps. But if there wasn't a process in you that is automatically digesting, metabolizing the food, even your getting the food would be useless. And from where would you get the food? Where does the food come from that you get it? Are you creating it? Are you? So why are you taking all this credit? I used to say that God gives us the food, he gives us the hunger, he gives us the mouth, the teeth, the digestive system. That when these two combine, life happens. He said, what are you claiming to have done? He said, all you can do is take credit for eating. That's it. The Lord is giving you the food that you need. He's giving you all the stuff you need to survive. Where is it coming from? Really? Is it not here already? It's a profound thing. It's a very profound thing. So now in this remaining time, let us clarify anything that is still unclear to you that we discussed. We talked about so many things. We talked about attachment in all its many flavors. We talked about methodologies for dealing with attachments, like Bhakti Yoga and Kama Yoga and Jnana Yoga, Dhyan Yoga. And we talked about Raja Yoga as a method for managing your ego and all these other things. We talked about an awful lot of stuff. And if there's anything that you would like to have clarified, please feel free. Or if there's some questions you still have, or if you just have some comments that you want to share, you see. Things that you got out of the session, please feel free to do that. You're most welcome. Yes.
Where does the meditation come into
This whole process? Yes. Meditation, you see, sister, comes in the sense that it is a process that enables you to reach deeper levels of identity until you are able to identify yourself with that which is. Through meditation, you see, you are able to transcend the level of identification that we currently have, which is usually just with the body. Most of us identify with our body. I am this body, and that which has happened to this body is a part of my historical experience, and I become totally identified with that. And this body is obviously separate from everything else, and that's how I get caught up in this whole ego thing. So identification just at the level of my body and the experiences that are associated with this body relegates me to the lowest possible let me put it like this here, relegates me to the highest degree of egotism, right? Is the identification just with my body and the experiences that is associated with it. As meditation breaks your limitations of identification with the body, it breaks it precisely, Khadija, because for the first time you have the experience of existing independent of the body. Independent of the body. You see, you have a sense of I in meditation that is not rooted in the body because you're not even feeling this body no more. This body has dropped out of the whole equation, and yet there's still an I experience that's for the first time independent of the body, right? And so in that experience you realize, oh my God, I'm not just the body. The body is a tool, a vehicle, an extension, yes. I'm more than just the body, right? I'm this body plus this new experience that is transcendental to the body. Meditation is a process of transcending the ego, right? Yes, it is an actual experiential transcendence of the ego, as opposed to just a kind of metaphysical or philosophical reflection. It is actually having the experience of transcending this physical body. And once you do that, then your sense of who you are is altered forever. You know now that there is a dimension to you that is greater than just your body and the relationships that this body have and the history that goes on with it. At another stage in meditation, sister, what occurs is the same transcendence of your emotions, or what they call the astral body. The astral body is simply that body that contains our feelings. Because at another level, our identification is with how we feel. Very often, a lot of us are identified with our feelings, our likes and dislikes. I like this, I like that, and you start identifying with that, you see. So we identify with our emotions. I'm feeling sad, I'm feeling blue, I'm unhappy, I'm this. All of that is identification with your emotions, right? And these emotions are always in a flux, aren't they? They're always traveling. So whatever emotion is in the frame of consciousness, you identify with that at that particular time, completely. And in meditation, as you practice and your meditation matures and it deepens, you're able for the first time to transcend your emotions, and therefore you have an experience of being something that is transcendental to your emotions. You find out for the first time, I am not angry. There's anger going on, and I'm aware that yes, anger is happening, but you're witnessing your anger. You are a witness to your sadness. You're a witness to your greed. You're a witness to your lust. You're a witness to all of those variety of things you like and dislike, but you understand that you are not those things. You experience them objectively, simply as a witness. As you proceed further into the depths of meditation, you come to a point where you transcend your mind. You transcend what they call the causal body, the mental body, the body that contains all your so-called knowledge, your knowing, all this other stuff, you see? And you begin to experience a reality, a dimension of yourself that is not identical to your mind. I think this, your opinions and all that other stuff, your knowledge, and all that other stuff. You begin to become free of the limited identification with your contents of your mind. I think so-and-so, so-and-so, I'm thinking this. The state you're in now, the thoughts that is running through your mind and all this here. Again, you transcend that, right? And then you go in deeper, and so forth and so on. You move up all of these stages, levels of identification, until finally, at the end of the process, you become identified with that God that is your reality all the time. You see? Like now, we have no identification with the divine in us at all. You do not see yourself as God. You really don't. You really don't. It almost seems blasphemous because that parental godism, outlaws that experience. Many men and women have been killed by the perpetuators of the parental model of godism because of their claims to have had the experience of being God. When the Indian mystic proclaimed Aham Brahmasmi, immediately he was killed. You see, flayed alive in many instances because this is blasphemous. How can you be God? But that is the reality. The reality is, how can you be anything other than God? Really? Does anything else exist other than God? Really? I mean, consider this. If you're having the experience of anything other than God, to that same extent, you are an illusion. You are having an illusion. You are hallucinating. It's not the mystics who are hallucinating. We are hallucinating the manyness of the one. There is only God. There is nothing else. And so, at the final stages in meditation, one has the experience of being God. That which is the reality. What the ancient Africans who attained that experience would often write somewhere in their epithets, Anukasah. If you will read the coronations of the pharaohs, and these are early dynastic Egypt, you will find very often in their speeches they will refer to themselves as Anukasah. I am a Sah, I am Osiris, I am God. You see, that is a level of realization. The Sufi mystics, the Muslim mystics are not Haqq, I'm God. God. You see. But that's the realization that you come to. And you realize that all the other identities you had were just an illusion. They were just different degrees of egotism, this feeling of being separate from that one reality. So that is what meditation confers on us. And remember, Khadija, that is an experience that no Gita, no Quran, no Bible, no Dhammapada, no scripture, no holy book can give you at all. That is an experience that each and every aspect of God that is us has to have. It's that awakening out of this slumber that the ego has put us in. And what is interesting is that with each successive deepening of the realization of who you are, your experience of bliss increases. And this is a strange thing. Your bliss, your happiness, your joy go on becoming less and less dependent on these other outward conditions. When our identification at the lowest level and we are totally identified with this body, now whatever happening to this body is going to seriously impact on our experience of joy and happiness. Man, if this body is not being fed, we're in, trauma, right? Because what happens to it happens to me. But as you regain your higher identities, then, this is not such a great component of what makes you happy, the condition that this body is in. As you go deeper, whether things that you like is happening or not liking doesn't impact you so much. Right now, when stuff happens that you don't like, you notice how it just mess you up, right? Cause you no end of suffering, right? Because things ain't going the way you like it to go. And that phenomena just, causes you to experience all kinds of misery. But when you are able to transcend your likes and dislikes, then whether things go the way you like or don't go the way you like, it's in no case affects you at all. You remain transcendental to that. And so it's sort of like that. This is not a good analogy that I'm giving you. It's the best picture of the process that I can paint with language, you see. You will have to just enter into the process and get a taste of this experience for yourself. Yes, sister?
As you start to drop the baggage, all the pursuits, and suddenly you find yourself in this Tao, in this stream. Other considerations like your karma, how do they play out, and at what point does the individual start to no longer live their own life, but just to be carried and you understand what I'm?
It's almost like a kind of a transcendence of karma. First thing we have to say about karma is that karma is a mental experience. Karma is, remember, Pam, I said on a past occasion that there's two parts to karma. One is the part that is associated with your actions, right? That sets up a consequence of events, right? That reaping what you sow kind of thing. But then there's a part of karma that dictates how you react, right? This is on the mind. Okay, this is outward. This is objective reality. Yes, you will break your leg. You set up the karma for that, but how you react to having a broken leg, you see, that karma can be changed. That karma can be transcended. And that's how people live with no karma. They live it without this. This karma always go on, because when it ends, you're not in the body no more. It's what the mystic calls karma, you know. But this kind of reacted, that's okay.
Okay, if the belief is that we're all here on this platform reason to live out our faith destinies, once we enter into this stream, I really love that whole idea of the Tao.
Beautiful.
Yeah. Once we enter into this Tao and we're dealing with our karma, we're reactionless and all of that, if we can suspend our ego and all these pursuits, the things that we want to do in life, at what point do we know that we're being other directed? That we're in a sense living out a script other than our own design? At what point, you understand what I'm saying? I'm just curious how an individual would live without doing their own thing, just being directed by God.
I think it's best answered by one of the Taoist mystics. He says, I chop wood and I carry water. And when I get sleepy, I sleep. And when I get hungry, I eat. Living in the Tao, you become very ordinary. Very ordinary. But the beauty is this: when they chop wood, they are only chopping wood. Their minds are not involved in anything else. When they eat, they are only eating. Contrast that to what we do. When they eat, 100% awareness is in the eating. They do everything with 100% awareness. We eat, we're reading, the TV is going, the records player is going, we're talking, we're never eating. 100% eating. We're swallowing. Swallowing and eating are different phenomena. When they are working, that's all they're doing. In the Tao, 100%. You're present 100% of whatever you do. And you just do whatever is dictated by reality. When you get tired, you rest. Now you never rest. You never rest a day in your life. You see? It's a different kind of thing. You know? The most extraordinary thing in life is to become ordinary. Please make it. The most extraordinary thing in life is to become ordinary. See, we all trying to be extraordinary. Right? Everybody is. You see? Nothing difficult in that. Just a little ego is required. But to be ordinary, very few people are ordinary. Just ordinary. In order. Yes?
I've said one of the most beautiful things in Japan is the tea scene.
Very beautiful.
And it's I'm drinking a cup of tea. It's
Oh.
serving it and drinking. The serving of it.
The serve.
It's like I said, it's something so simple and ordinary.
So simple.
But what I wanted to say is say thank you to you because it reminds me how important it is to have a teacher. Because Thursday morning I heard that and we read it aloud in church. I read these things aloud every time I go to church. But as I was reading it, I was going, it was a clear message to me because I have a teacher versus just reciting something is what I've done for 40 years is recite. Just automatic, and somewhere in my head, some long time ago, I stopped listening to what we were reciting. We just have an agenda you follow, and we say amen at the end and walk out of church. And I had to carry that home. I thought I'd lost it because I was bringing it to you.
Good, thank you so much.
Because I thought it is like Pamela said, we hear the message, it's not new. Like, thank you for breaking the ice with me.
Oh, you're most welcome. This, all this is God's grace now, right? It's all God's grace. Anything else? Keep it, you stayed way longer than you were supposed to, huh? You get out of here, huh? You have things to do.
You're supposed to maybe give us some tips for that. You're saying the person, when they say when walking, walk. And I tried once to walk and only walk, not use my headset, not. And the example I was given was try counting my footsteps. Concentrate on the walk. I just couldn't do it after very long. My mind just kept.
Yeah, your mind kept flapping and waving.
Are there skills that we?
Yes, those skills come through practice. You have to keep practicing. And that's the way, that's the experience you also have in meditation. In meditation, the first thing that you have to develop is concentration. And I think probably, Khadija, in the sessions that we'll do on spiritual training and development, maybe I will break down all of the preliminary processes and preparations that one has to go through. But the first thing we have to do is to train the mind how to concentrate, because normally we don't know how to concentrate. You see, we don't know how to concentrate. So initially in the meditation exercises, the first training is at the level of concentration. Perhaps one is given a mantra or an image or something to concentrate on. Now in that process of trying to concentrate, what you will notice is how your mind continually goes off that subject or off that mantra or off the thing to be held in concentration. And that's because the powers of the mind is weak. The concentration, the ability to concentrate is weak. Now there can't be this is not meditation. Most people confuse concentration with meditation. They're entirely two different things. Because the ability to concentrate is a prelude to developing the capacity to meditate. So the training is first and just in the level of concentration. But even before we get into training the mind how to concentrate, we have to train the body how to concentrate. Now this is interesting because you don't think normally that the body can concentrate. But the body is in a concentrated state when it can be made to be still. In fact, you will begin to see that there's a correlation between the mind capacity to concentrate and your ability to teach the body to be still. And in yoga, they came up with all kinds of postures called asanas. These asanas are different postures that aid you in maintaining a still position in the body. So the first fundamental step is to still the body, and then you try to still the mind through a process called concentration, or dharana, as they call it in Asia, in the East, right? Now once you develop that capacity to concentrate, then you can move on to the next level of meditation. So when you say this walking and counting your steps, the only thing that gives you the ability to walk, to Zen walk, as they call it, is to go on losing awareness, bringing it back, losing awareness, and that is the process. It's a fatiguing process, but after a while the mind gets tired out. You have to actually tire the mind out. The mind will actually eventually get tired of wondering, but you have to exhaust it. You literally have to exhaust the
in a yoga class that I just started, the instructor was going through the breathing, the medic yoga I was talking about, and he was going through the relax your head, at each section of your body. And I was particularly tense that evening, and up to that point I had really had this great euphoric feeling when he would do this. But that particular night I felt like, oh my goodness, it's now working. And so I was like, I'm not relaxing. And then he got down to the bottom and started up, and I was like, my last thought was, I'm not relaxing. And the next thing I knew, I was asleep. It was so embarrassing because the class was up. I think I actually snored and woke myself up. And I looked up and people were standing up doing this move, and I thought, oh my God, how long have I been down here? Completely not, and it was like the deepest, I didn't want to get up. I mean, it was like the deepest sleep I had almost experienced, that and it was just a really interesting experience because I was steadily saying it's not working.
And you fell into it. So there's a kind of science that's going on in that whole process. And you're right. You will find that throughout this whole process, as far as breath is concerned, what we call pranayama. Prana means breath, yama means control of breath, which is an integral part of most body-based yoga, hot yoga particularly. But as you move up in this process of concentration, you'll find that your rate of breathing mimics the rate of your thinking, and that you can impact either or from either side. If you want to regulate your breathing and turn it back into a kind of more relaxing breathing, then by slowing the thoughts in the mind, you can do that, and vice versa. In fact, pranayama yoga, this controlling of the breathing, came into being as an aid in concentrating the mind. Because, again, the ancient yogis saw the correlation between breath and the speed at which the mind moves. And so they would very often start off the preliminary practice through an exercise of deep breathing, diaphragmatic, breathing from the diaphragm, right? And Tibet, they took it to a high science. They even have a thing that they call fire breathing, and you get that pot belly. I don't know if you're familiar with the yogis. If you look at a lot of the master pranayama yoga, you see, unlike us, we just got pot bellies, but they actually, you develop this kind of big belly. It comes from pushing, expanding the diaphragm so much. Fire breathing, because it changes even the chemistry of the body. So breathing itself has a great role. Now it is interesting that there are certain cycles in breathing, the kubak, vichak, right, and all these other things. These are technical things, and your teacher can work with you on that. But breath is held, you see, and then exhale at certain rhythmic points, at certain meters, And all of that, again, is to impact on the activity of the thoughts racing through the mind and calms it down. That's the same purport behind changing the diet, vegetarianism. All of these things are aids to prepare you. So I think as we go through that process, it's too much to go into now, but you'll begin to see a lot of things going on. Before we do any of that, though, it's been very good to take these kinds of workshops, because unless one has a certain amount of psychological and emotional stability, you're not going to be able to do any real high practice no way. There's just no substitute for that. So this is all you're going to find is very, very useful. But it is good that you're doing some yoga. I'm very happy to hear that. When you told me the first time that you all were taking that class, I thought that was very good. you know, because it will help you much in learning.
It just seems like the physical component to what,
Yeah. Yeah.
to what we're.
It's the physical counterpart. And it's very good. So you're very good that you took these things on those things. Was there anything else? Any other questions, comments? The homework, simple again, let me reiterate it. Between now and over your holidays, please make a thorough examination on the strategies that you have personally adopted to make yourself happier. What are the things that you are making your experience of happiness conditioned upon? Investigate those things. Try to understand in the process of that investigation that your happiness can be had now. You need not accomplish and achieve any of that stuff on your list at all. You see. At least not for purposes of being happy. Attain them, of course, if you still like, for their functional value. Tony was saying she need a new car, it's functional. But you don't need a new car to be happy. Enjoy the distinctions, right? If you want to lose some weight to feel better, fine, but you don't need to lose no weight to be happy, right? If you need to make some more money to create a better financial situation for yourself, by all means make more money, but you don't need to make more money to be happy. Begin to disconnect all of that activity from your experience of happiness, right? So investigate that very closely. See how you are pinching yourself. See how you are contributing to your own perpetuation of misery and suffering. Look at all those things. And at the first of the year, then we will try to process that, or you can give me a call if there's something interesting that comes up that you're stuck on, and we'll see if we can process it.
When do we start?
We're going to start again after the holidays in January. I'm glad you mentioned that. Khadija, you and Sandy are working on the anger management short series. So let's set that for maybe the first week in January or something. And if you would stay in touch with Bilal so that he'll remind me that it's coming up and we can get all prepared for that. And Dorothy, you are going to take the list of names of those who wants to take the spiritual training and development workshops. And we'll start those in January. Maybe we should do one on Saturday, one on Sunday. I don't want to kill myself on Saturday.
Yes.
What do you think? Let's split it over 2 days. We'll do the anger one on Saturdays and we'll do the spiritual one on Sundays. All right? That's
The spiritual workshop, what kinds of things are you going to include?
I'm going to be very ambitious in the spiritual training and development workshop, simply because, at least for you all who have been through some things, we'll be able to accelerate a lot of things. You see? So I'm going to try to cover a lot of things. We're going to talk about managing our doubts, managing fear, managing our ego, transcending, we're going to talk about a lot of things.
The people that are still pinching themselves will
Yes,
be able to come?
they'll be able to come.
Oh,
They'll need to come.
Oh, they'll need to come on. Okay.
And so we'll do all of that. We'll do all of that in January. And over the holidays, I think tomorrow, right, Bilal, we finish up a few of the personal sessions because some of you I didn't get the chance to finish with you. Want to do that. I don't want to leave that incomplete. And then just be generally available for those of you who are working still on this last project and you need a little push to get past certain blocks or humps. So there'll still be occasions, but in general, just enjoy yourself. The difference is now your homework is to enjoy yourself. That is my assignment. Be happy to actually, in spite of yourself, practice enjoyment, practice celebration. You see, practice. That's the homework. Try to hang on to your happiness in spite of what's going on around you. Don't let anything bring that out. Develop this city, develop this ability. All right? Just get up in the morning and decide with the day, I'm going to remain happy today under all conditions. That's all. Now, let's take this food with us.